Alex. Um, Thank you first off for coming on, having a chat with me
Of
today.
course.
Obviously, this is a very topical thing, especially in the land of marketing, as we have seen across the board. Probably you and I and others, probably a bit more than a lot of other people. So today we're just going to go through, obviously, AI and what that actually means, and then what's been happening in the space, and some of the marketing applications. And yeah, Alex is pretty up to date with this. So I am really, really excited. So, first and foremost, Alex, do you want to give a bit of a background as to your experience and what you've been doing so people actually can know who you are and why we're talking today?
Of course. So I've been in the marketing game for probably around 6, 7 years now. But before that, I was a web developer and app developer for 5 years. So from like 2011, 2012 to end of 2017, all I did was Shopify stores, WordPress, custom apps, all of that good stuff. So that's where all my kind of dev background comes from. And when all this AI machine learning stuff came up 6 months ago, I just thought it was like the perfect marriage to pair those two together. And the way the industry's going now, it's like a it's like the perfect combo, honestly. Um, as you can tell, I've been busy. Just
Yes,
gonna yeah,
yes,
just making cool stuff, and the response to that's been insane. But now,
absolutely.
like, I can see it because I'm in the tech space and I'm in the marketing space. But for most people, they don't realize what's coming in terms of like the change to consumer behavior,
Yeah,
how the businesses are going to operate from marketing, sales, processes, you name it.
I agree. And I think let's just bring it back a bit, Alex, because you've got a point. And I think it's that most people are seeing, AI mentioned on the news and have played with, GPT a little bit. And let's just talk about the technology. What does it actually mean? What is it developing? And I guess how is the kind of back end working?
So how the backend works is like it's almost a black box, but the main concept, the main goal is to for AI is to get tech to the point where AI stands for artificial intelligence, where it can think and act as well as a human, basically. And that's what machine learning does. It's feeding these programs tons and tons and tons of data, along with a crap ton of processing power, so that it tries to emulate the workings of like a brain, essentially. So they'll no doubt people have saw Elon talk about neural network and just like having access to the internet like from thoughts. And that's kind of what they're trying to do like within this space. So first it's get this, and then if Elon has anything to do with it, plug us into it. Um, but yeah, so that's what Chat GPT is
Yeah.
essentially. It's a whole bunch of computers code that tries to act like a human mind.
Amazing. And I think people have definitely seen that. I think some of the basic applications is, you can go in and ask for a recipe, or you
Yeah.
can go in and basically ask for, you've seen it with kids at schools, right? Trying to write an
Yep.
essay, even though I warn against that because, as I told you earlier, I've done some testing to the
Yep.
level, the knowledge level, and, these tools are only as good as the information you put in. But I think let's just talk a bit about, so AI is sorry, the chat GPT is kind of the humanization of it, right? So being
Yep.
able to kind of relate on that level. Let's talk a bit about machine learning and how that kind of works as well, again on a 101 level, because a lot
Yep.
of it's the back information that's kind of working to do the output, right?
Yeah. So with that, so the way OpenAI did it was they basically scraped the whole internet. So they have all of that info, and then they're training ChatGPT or GPT-4 on that data. Now, it all comes down to like how many words, a system knows, and the connections it can make between various topics, um, and the amount of data points it has. Now, I don't know the exact figure for ChatGPT, but it's in the like billions of parameters it's pulling from. And yeah, it's basically pulling from the whole web. But it has that way where, because of how it's been trained, it can... Now, you're talking about this with the inaccuracies and like, recent events. Now, what they call that hallucinating, where it'll basically just make stuff up.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT or 3.5 is quite bad at that. But with 4, that's like a whole different model. Like, they spent billions, or at least like a couple of 100 million training this thing.
And Alex, it was, I think a lot of people just think this has come out of nowhere, but this has been in the works for a very long time, right?
Yeah. They became they went from a non-profit. So OpenAI went from a non-profit to like a profit around I think it was around 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
Latest 2017. And they've been working on GPT-4 for a good couple of years. In terms of the actual goal, they've been working on that since 2014, 2013. So the best part of a decade to get to where we are now. But now that we've reached this milestone, it's kind of like when, years ago, when hard drives and phones and whatnot, it was slow going up until say the iPhone. And then it was just a major ramp up in terms of capability, features and whatnot. So we're literally at the starting line for this affecting day-to-day life for everyone. Beforehand, it was just a bunch of geeks, a bunch of nerds in computer science, training this thing up and testing it rigorously.
Yeah. And this is a thing, right? And so, obviously recently there has been the availability to use the API, right? So I guess, do you want to talk a bit about what that actually means, and then maybe let's talk about some of the things you've been doing with it, because that's why I reached out to you. I'm seeing you every day put up, hey, we've got this thing we could do with copy, this is how it could optimize advertising, this is how it can basically do anything you kind of put your mind to. And so let's go into that a bit.
So the public facing ChatGPT that you all know, that's one that OpenAI is hosting and they expose to the public. And you have your free tier and your plus tier where you can get, GPT-4. Now with that, it has limitations on what you can do with it. It's simply text input and you get an output.
Yeah.
But with an API, which stands for a programmable interface, application program interface, it's for developers to basically send information to it, bypassing the user interface, so the chat box that you have. But with GPT-4, we can send up to 4 times as much data. So in terms of getting better output, we can give it more input, it gets more context, it gives better output. And when they release the next version, it'll be up to 10 times more data. So then it can take up to 25,000 words of input.
And this is the thing, right, Alex? And I think obviously when you look at machine learning from the back end, just to kind of bring it back down to a bit more of a accessible explanation, right? These are always learning, like it says it in the name. So the more data that comes in, it is actually everything you put in, it's taking into the back end and then learning, and basically the more it kind of gets to that level, it's able to do a better output. And it's exactly. And I think the thing I find most fascinating about this is, as I mentioned before, the humanization of data. Excuse me. And that's kind of really where we're at. And so it's not just a magical computer that's spitting this stuff out. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. And I think people need to realize, with anything online, all of that is being recorded, right? So, it's quite interesting. So let's talk about, in a bit more detail, some of the applications you've been seeing. And obviously your background is marketing, as have I. We met probably about 5 years ago, and we've been kind of all, geeking out since. So let's talk a bit about how you've been applying it in a test environment.
So no doubt everyone's heard of the Chat GPT plugins that are coming.
Yeah.
So with that, it can access the internet, book flights and all of that stuff. That's probably bigger even than like GPT-4 compared like for the average consumer.
Yeah.
Because with that, they can just go to this one interface, load up a brand store, and say, "Hey, can you help me buy?" Or load up, say, eBay, the eBay plugin, and say, "Hey, I want to buy some blue jeans in this size. Can you help?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. What's your measurements?" Or, "Hey, I have trouble sleeping," and it can say, "Oh, no problem. What symptoms do you have?" And based on like their answers, then ChatGPT can pick a product that's suitable for that person. So it's like personalized. It's like going into a store and having a sales rep like take you
Yeah.
through step by step by step and saying, "This is perfect for you.
And
This is the
that's
price."
basically, if we think of it from an e-commerce standpoint, right? Like
Yeah,
how incredible is that, being able to
it's
understand kind of
huge.
what the consumer needs and being able to adapt and personalize. And I think personalization is the key here. And I think we've
It
always
is
been
key.
trying to get down that route, especially as advertisers, on the
Yeah,
digital space. It's about how can we make things more relevant, more personal, and solve people's problems and be
yeah,
able to, it's an easier way to convert. And I think
it is.
it's gonna, yeah, the consumer side is going to be amazing as you're using it from a consumer element. But from a marketing standpoint, if you embrace this, man, it's going to completely
It's
change the
huge.
game. Yeah,
From like say from personalized sales. So imagine someone comes to your store and it can be just like a live chat, but ChatGPT is manning it, or they message your Facebook page, or customer support, or SMS and they reply.
yeah.
It's platform agnostic. It doesn't matter. You can plug this in anywhere.
And let's talk about,
Complaints.
like, exactly, Alex. And it's like it's not just purely giving a recommendation. Like, let's talk about how it can apply to different content,
Yeah,
different image. You know what I mean? Like, let's kind of
for sure.
explain a bit more around it. It's not just giving you a text prompt, right?
No. So with GPT-4, it's not out yet, but that's multimodal, which means it can take images and text as input.
Yeah,
So imagine that, and imagine so with GPT-4, you can give it a ton of data in terms of like your ad frameworks, your email frameworks, brands you like, examples of ads or landing pages that you like,
yeah,
and train it up on that, and then get it to rewrite your stuff. But imagine you have a screenshot of an ad creative or a landing page that's not converting, and you want to know why. You can just upload that image, and then it'll basically read the image, like all the elements, grab the text, and be able to give you constructive feedback
yeah. And I think,
based
look,
on based on the training you've given it.
exactly. And there's two elements to that. I think first and foremost, and I've been talking to a lot of, let's just say, more visionary marketers like
Yeah.
yourself, and I'm in the point of view that if you are running a digital agency or you are just running ads, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you better catch up because it's going to
Yeah.
take over a lot of those optimization elements.
Yep.
And if you let's look at Google, for example, right? And how that whole suite has kind of been brought together with the rollout of
Mm-hmm.
GA4. Obviously, there's a lot more machine learning basis behind that. And
Yep.
you look at Performance Max campaigns. And if people don't know
Yeah.
what that is, basically, it's where you can upload a whole lot of different creatives from video to images to text, and it starts to optimize across the whole Google suite, meaning YouTube, Gmail, etc., search. And it's going to start learning more about the different customer and start to apply it that way. So again, it kind of seems like correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the old ways of, creating different campaigns based off different potential search terms is kind of
Yeah.
becoming redundant, right?
It basically is. I mean, think
Yeah.
what we used to do with Facebook retargeting. We would break that down into like, okay, day 2, they see this ad.
Yeah.
12 p.m. at day 4, they're going to see this ad.
Yeah. It was very manual. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Facebook just handles all of that for you. And it's all about the offer, the creative, and the funnel.
Yeah.
And like everything else is like, no. And Google's going the same way.
Yeah.
Just chuck in your
Absolutely.
creative, some rough targeting, maybe a customer list, and don't even choose placements. Just let
Yeah.
them go for it. It doesn't get it right all the time. These systems aren't perfect like at all, but The more data they get, the better they get.
And this is it, right? And I think to the flip side, I don't want to cut off all
No.
digital advertisers and freak them out. So that's not my intention. But I think the other thing really here is, and we kind of touched on a little bit, is the fact that these tools are only as good as the information you give it. And I really do believe that you need to understand the basic principles of anything, right? In terms of when you're trying to amplify your output, that's really important. So let's talk a bit about prompts, and maybe people don't know even what that is, and basically how that works. Maybe you can talk a little bit how you've been able to apply that and get the best out of these platforms.
Yeah, so prompts are basically the instruction you're giving this AI. So like ChatGPT, GPT-4, it's just instructions. And the more specific the instructions are, depending on what your goal is, then the better the output. And, people would add all the please, thank yous and whatnot. And, sure, they can add it in, but it doesn't make any difference to the end output.
You got to be pretty clear and demanding for a lot of those platforms, right?
Exactly. But in terms of so I was showing my ad scraper example before, and it would scrape Facebook ad library for a given page. Mm-hmm. Let's say it was the UD. And I would scrape that copy, then give that to GPT-4 and say, hey, your job for me is a direct response copywriter. You know all of these guys, Ogilvy, Kennedy, Halbert, all of the greats. And your job is to break down this copy into a repeatable framework. I also want you to give me the lead type and the level of awareness this ad is targeting.
Oh, man.
And from that, it would say, no problem. And I would tell it, based on the books, breakthrough advertising and great leads. And from that, I had context of that because they are older books. I had basically read those books. So it knew the promise leads,
exactly.
The story leads, most aware, product aware, unaware, and be able to dissect these ads into, the exact framework. So that
exactly right, Alex. And I think, I've been doing a similar thing, right? Just being able to test it. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I've been doing it from a element to see the level of knowledge based off if you just give it a basic prompt saying, hey, as I told you, I've got a company, Clink, which is a gin subscription service here. And so I wanted to test it in terms, okay, tell me about the history of gin in New Zealand. And tell me about the industry now. The stuff that came out was it was making stuff up, and that was on a 3.5. So I think people have to be really, really conscious of this, because if you don't put in more parameters, like you said, and that's the whole thing. If you don't have that knowledge around something, you could be led down a whole rabbit hole, and you're actually going to end up worse off. And this is where, I guess, to bring back my point, is that having people in your, let's say, your marketing or your sales or your technology suite who understand the principles here and can advise you on this is going to be the key. And I think that's definitely where a lot of businesses need to focus on, or you're going to get left behind. For
sure. And it's that way where it's evolving so quickly that, sure, right now, unless you're a little bit tech savvy, then it's difficult to kind of get your hands dirty and kind of play with it. But within a few weeks, a few months, then I guarantee you, there'll be low to no code, platforms there that will allow the everyday business owner, to bypass the restrictions of the chat interface.
Yeah.
Talk directly with the API and get the output that they want. But if they don't get on it now, or at least become aware of it and have a rough kind of roadmap for how to implement it, then within 6 months they will be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because we'll take the plugins that are going to be coming out. They're saying there's around 50 to 100 per hour that are currently being developed. So you think, if you're not one of them, and when these plugins become accessible to the public, then you're missing out on basically the modern day gold rush.
Yeah,
because people are going to be going through this and seeing it real time on how it influences their buying process. And if they favor it, that's going to be the new process.
Absolutely. And look, that kind of, obviously we're talking we want to talk about e-commerce and how that is being applied in that space. And I think that's definitely the area I'm heavily focusing on, and like the ability for me, like I'm a data person. Excuse me. I need data to make any decision when it comes to anything in business. It's just, that's how I work. And to be honest, that's a smart way of doing things. I'm not just going to do something just to test it out, right? And how I see a lot of this is obviously being able to give me, all my clients, more information faster based off the goals that they have and the KPIs. But again, having that, as you said, having that understanding of how it works in back end is how that's how you're going to get this to deliver, right? So
that's it. And
let's talk a bit about, you showed me earlier a bit of how you've applied it in terms of a personalization standpoint, right? So I really want to talk about this because in an e-com space, if you're just putting something up at the moment, or anything online, actually, if you're selling anything, if it's a sales tool that you're trying to, so you've got a program where you're selling a service or a coaching program or anything that has an online application, if you're not looking at this on how to enhance it and you're getting scared of it, and I see this so much narrative around this, you're going to be, I keep saying this, you're going to be left behind. So let's talk a bit about, from your experience, how you're seeing, not necessarily how it's being applied yet, but some of the ways that this could really amplify anything online.
Yeah. So where do you even begin? Everything from customer service. So a customer has a problem. You can train these AIs on your SOPs for handling complaints, inquiries, and whatnot. So it can, let's say someone sends an email to support at yourbrand.com and the issue is a refund. Then you could essentially train these bots up to where it reads the email, contextualizes it, says, okay, this person wants a refund. Can we reverse this? Can we get around this? And if you have documentation there on how to handle, refund requests, say by offering, whatever like extra you want, or replacing it, or whatever your process is, it can handle all of that and connect with your systems to automate that process. So if the customer just says, nope, I just want a refund, then the bot can go, okay, Stripe, find the payment ID, it's your refund. Done.
Yeah. Exactly.
No human interaction there.
Just on that though, Alex, and I will get into a bit more about how it can be applied, but I think a lot of people will be considering and freaking out going, okay, I'm going to be made redundant, or I'm going to be no longer required. But let's talk about, you mentioned, SOPs, standard operating procedures, right? For those who don't know. So who's actually going to dictate that, right? So who's going to develop let's say the framework or the strategy around this? And maybe let's talk about how you can evolve a bit more as your skill set in order to best serve these platforms and not become redundant.
No. Well, that's it. I mean, learning how to, they call it prompt engineering. So giving the right input to get the right output. That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Knowing how to integrate these systems. Like I say, there will be no-code systems there in no time to help bring all this together. Knowing how to chunk your information into segments that are easily understood by these systems. But also, even just for optimizing a day-to-day process. So instead of having to, let's say you're a copywriter, or you're a brand owner and you're doing your own emails, instead of having to go through and write like a 10 piece email sequence, then you feed GPT-4 like a bunch of emails that can convert well. Say, okay, break this down into a framework for me. Does that? No problem. Then say, can you do this for me on my product? Sure. It'll ask you like the benefits, the price points, the features, any extras, and all of that stuff. And it'll just redo it for you.
Yeah.
And then happy. So it's all about learning how to use it within your workflow.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
And, we've had a comment there. I think the model will change completely. The end user will have their own AI. They own the data in this, and this model will go out and request, for example, quotes for services they want to obtain, like insurance, etc. It's exactly that. It's going to actually provide you to focus on more things that are of value rather than necessarily all the day-to-day admin as well, if you want to look at it at a base level. But yeah, I think just on what you just said, like you need to get, if you want to make sure that you're going to be still valuable within the workplace. I hate to be so blunt, but it's about making sure that you're across a lot of the stuff, especially if you are in one of those roles that are considered a bit more administration, like it's going to be an absolute game changer. So let's just jump back to ecom and how it can be applied, right? So we talked about customer service. Maybe let's talk a bit about how it can really start to apply. We talked about personalization. I kind of want to go a bit more into how that would work in the sales process, right? So I've got to the store. How can I make it so that I can use AI on these platforms and provide a better outcome to convert?
Yeah. So honestly, all this stuff is, from my understanding, still being built out, as in like these chat systems. Myself and a friend are, I showed you like a screenshot of a conversation that we're having. And what it'll do is, the way we see it happening is just like when you go into a store and you're browsing about, someone comes along and says, "Hi, can I help you with anything?" And if you're actually looking, you'll say, "Yeah, I'm looking to, I have back pain. I need something to keep me up, during my night shifts. I'm looking for a new TV, for my house." Then, okay, great. Then the interface, the chatbot, will have access to all of your products. And essentially it does like a Google search, where it's like, okay, they've said, let's say the TV. Then you're looking for a TV which is, 50 inches, whatever. And then it pulls up those products. And it says, okay, what kind of panel are you looking for? Are you looking for 4K, 1080p, whatever? Narrow that down again. And if I ask a question, like, I'm not sure what to go for, what would you recommend? Then it can pull up the list of products. Then based on what the user said before, use its own model, its own like context to come up with an answer based on the products we have and the user's problem. And I'll say, well, because your room is X, wide, or, because you have 3 bedrooms, then based on that, I would recommend this TV because it has these parameters.
Yeah.
And then it'll give you the benefits, not just features. It comes with Disney Plus, Netflix, all of that stuff. And then, if they're sold, then they'll say, great, I can handle the purchase process. Yeah. Would you like to move forward? Great. It's added to cart.
On that though, Alex, I think, obviously people have probably had exposure to a lot of those online chats and, chat bots and stuff. And I think probably people are going, oh, you may be rolling their eyes going, yeah, that's annoying because all I want to go is talk to human, right? Is it going to get to the stage, and I believe it is, that people aren't even going to know that it's a...
They won't know.
They won't
know. Because I can tell GPT-4 to write in the style of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Or, any comedian. And it'll have the punctuation and everything down to the T. So if you train it on your brand voice and how you like to be portrayed, then it will speak in that way.
Yeah.
And there's even now...
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, there's even now apps where you can connect it with text to speech. And let's say they're leaving recordings, voicemails or whatnot. You would not tell a difference with this voice generation, than you would to a human.
Yeah,
you just wouldn't.
You wouldn't, and I think a lot of people. Okay, I'm probably hearing all this. The day-to-day person's probably going, "This is fucking scary," to be honest. But at the end of the day, it's happening, right? And so I think the more people are aware of this, but I also think that with anything, okay, people have to be aware. Anything in life, there's a positive and a negative, right? So and it's moving so fast. When technology moves this fast, there is always going to be hiccups. There is always going to be, we're learning on this. Exactly, it will. So, and we'll probably have narrative around how negative it is. We're already seeing that. I saw, the whole Elon Musk thing earlier saying, we need to slow this down, which I'm kind of, but I think there's, because it's not necessarily the right shares involved, whatever. But I'm always critical about that stuff. But yeah, I think really looking at how it can help, and obviously people being
Mm-hmm.
prepared that it's coming up is going to be key. Now, personally, I look at it from a data point of view, right? So for me, I'm always looking at basically how we can better get insight as to how we can improve not only marketing efficiency. I think it from an ad
Mm-hmm.
perspective, but I'm also looking at it right through the consumer journey, right? So
Yeah.
how can it be that we can target people with the right creative or the right message, right through to
Yep.
understanding the products they buy based off that segment, right through to how do we make it more efficient to do deliveries, right through to how we can
Yeah.
actually get repeat customers or look at reviews and manage that. So it's basically what you said. So I want to touch on a little bit though around the importance of creative, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think that it's just all going to be automated, and I think to a level, but I would love your feedback on the importance of real creative, like with real
Yeah.
people or real emotion, and having that kind of connect, because marketing's about emotion, right, and connection. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And let's talk a bit about that. Do you think that's going to play a larger role moving forward?
It definitely will. I mean, there are tools out there like Midjourney,
Yeah.
which can create especially with the new version that just came out,
Mm-hmm.
scarily lifelike,
Yeah.
images. But they won't be doing product shots like anytime soon.
Yeah.
So regarding like your UGC, your problem solution ads, where it's still very much video based and product focused, then it'll take a good while before
Yeah.
AI comes for any of that stuff. But
Absolutely.
again, that's where the main
Just
leverage will be: the offer
absolutely.
and the creative.
Yeah, exactly. And just
And
so people
that's
who
it.
don't know, UGC, user generated content. So that's
Yeah,
basically your customers putting up a post on Instagram or a video
yeah,
or TikTok, whatever, saying, "Oh my god, this product's amazing," or the opposite too. So yeah, so you're right though. So in terms of the kind of more top of funnel or the initial
yeah.
content that people are seeing, is going to have that ability. And look, it's going to even have the ability to change it out like
Yeah.
automatically, right? So you're not
Well,
having
that's
to
it.
up. You know?
You set a custom metric. Let's say you have a video, and
Yeah,
it's okay. It's only stopping a certain percentage of people, like based on impressions and click through rates. Great. Then yeah, as long as the creative is there, it'll just swap them out for you.
this is it.
And it's all coming. Like I mentioned before, I was building a Slack app which did ad management. And with that, I can create campaigns, ad sets, give it an image, and get it to write the copy for me, and just say, go create that campaign.
Yeah.
And
If
it'll go and do it for me.
if people don't understand, like, okay, the traditional, well, not traditional, back, let's say 5 years ago, when you
Yeah.
and I met, like to run ads on Facebook or Google, it was hard work. There was a lot
Yeah.
of manual elements, and to get kind of to hack the back end to get the right cut through, the lowest price in the
The
auction.
Billy
It
method
was
surf. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard,
Yeah,
and
that'll.
absolutely, like having to do like tell the system, okay, as we were talking about before, one ad after one day, another
Yeah.
one after that, like to try and control the narrative in
You're
some
testing
way.
small increments and like bid caps to see where the flooded sales
Absolutely.
comes in. But yeah.
That's all.
But
That's all.
now it's have a good offer, have a great website,
Yeah,
and have your creative on point so that it speaks to your market. And
absolutely.
that's it.
Now, the other thing I just want to touch on as well is, and I've been saying this a little bit to clients and stuff, is the importance of first party data here. And
Big time.
obviously, for those who don't know, first party data is effectively data, I don't want to say own, but data you've collected on your own
Yeah.
platforms, right? So email lists, for example. So how is that going to add value based off these platforms as well? And what is it going to add value? What's your take on that?
It will big time. In a couple of different ways. So let's say we use that bot example, which is taking people through a purchase process.
Yeah.
And you gather their email in that process. But only say 5%, buy. So there's 5 out of 100. Then the AI can look at those other 95 that didn't buy,
Yeah.
figure out why they didn't buy, whether it was price, whether it was features missing, whether it was something in like the dialogue flow, and compartmentalize them into like blocks. So like the top 5 reasons why these people aren't buying. Or let's say you have your email list of buyers and you're able to see, or it's able to see, okay, the top buyers, who came back time and time again, who have the highest lifetime value, this is the product stack that they bought, or this is the order they bought the products, or any number of different things. And based on that, I can tell you kind of like which products to push more of, because although it might not, and let's say at least a lower upfront, but at least a higher lifetime value, it can do all of that for you if you give it that data and
Absolutely.
give it the right input.
How I see it, right, is you're going to be able to have this technology is going to give you access to a CMO, a CTO, all your C-suite is going to be wrapped up in this. If you want to look at it that way, and it's going to allow. But what I love about it, it's going to allow small business owners or people who are, maybe there's 1 to 5 people in their e-commerce store. If these tools are applied correctly and they again use it correctly with their own input and data, it is going to elevate your knowledge and be able to scale your business tenfold. And that's where I'm excited about, is playing in that space. All the big guys are already out there. They're doing it, right? So it's about accessibility and bringing it to the right market. Now, Alex, I want to ask you, this is something I've had a bit of a few people touch on. What about the privacy around all this? Like, obviously, if people are concerned about their data, and, everyone is, well, not everyone, I say a lot of people are, and they
are, and they should be.
Yeah. So let's talk about how that works. You're obviously in Europe as well. So Europe, I should say. God, sorry, that's touching on whatever, Brexit. But, let's talk about how, and obviously, Europe has the strongest privacy regulations in the world, So let's talk about how that's mitigated, and obviously how it's getting around that, or what needs to happen if you are doing this and using this in order to make sure you're protected as a business.
So that all comes down to where you're storing your data, really. So if it's pulling from, say, your spreadsheet, then you need to kind of just be careful on where that's being hosted. And same with your customer list. So if you're with doesn't matter the CRM, but as long as their protocols and whatnot are in order, then imagine it just like you doing a search yourself. Now, for these bots, again, it'll depend on where they're hosted. So as long as everyone's kind of in alignment, so let's say you're in Europe. Now, I don't know how this will come about, but let's say you're in Europe, then you select the bot that, is housed on a computer in Europe. Then no problem. All the data is staying within there. Same with the US.
Yeah.
So you just make sure that each platform is playing, nicely. Yeah. And it will be a non-issue at that point.
Absolutely.
Because it depends on how the business is running it. If if another company is managing it for them, then obviously it's on them. But if the business is hosting it and running it themselves, then it's on the business.
Absolutely.
Because it's just like using another piece of software. So long as wherever the program is running and wherever it's storing data is within the guidelines, then you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is something from if we kind of go from a marketer's standpoint, that people need to be quite, I think, not concerned, but be very, very careful
wary
about.
Of. Yeah, for sure.
And it's about, you can get excited about this tech, and you can obviously go down and go gung-ho and go cowboy on it, but again, be careful. That's the other thing I just want to get across there, is that you need to make sure you've got either a data security person to advise you, or you've got a bloody good team that actually understands this and can make sure, or you focus on markets that you're not as restricted on to start off with, right? That's the other element. Okay, obviously we've had a bit of a chat, and I know this is probably very overwhelming for a lot of people, or it's exciting for a lot of people. But I guess, Alex, to finish off, let's kind of talk about where you see things in, I want to say 18 months time, but I want to say 3 months time, because it's moving so fast.
I'd say 3 months time. 18 months is going to be a whole world. 3 to 6 months, your plugins will be the norm. Think of it like the Apple App Store, when the iPhone launched. That's how it's going to be. And I can guarantee you there'll be monetization in there. So there'll be some big players in there. I would be very surprised if eBay, Shopify, Etsy didn't have a plugin in there.
Yeah.
And had some way to integrate, your store with ChatGPT, or had some way to integrate all stores with, within it.
Yeah.
And again, the buying process won't have changed drastically, but there'll be a new model there where it's like personalized and like self-selling. Whether that's through chat, email, text, messenger, it doesn't matter. Instagram DMs. I can see that rolling out big time. I know some people who are already, working on that and have like working versions that are being tested. Yeah. So, that is coming. Every platform will try and work in GPT-4 in some way, whether it's, emails, are you familiar with like Notion and kind of how they've brought in AI and whatnot?
Yeah.
Basically having it kind of do some tasks for you. So that's all coming. And yeah, there'd be a lot more acceptance, I think, from the public's perspective on all of this, because it won't be new.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be new, but yeah.
Even if there is an acceptance, I don't think you're going to have an option, right? So it's gone so fast. If honestly, the one thing I kind of want to get out there is that people are seeing literally 0.00000000001% of what the hell is going on. So again, bringing it back to, if you are in the space, you don't have to be an expert, but start understanding what's going on in it, because it will impact you, especially as a business owner, anything in business. And I'm not just talking e-com. And if you're on the other side, you're a marketer, catch up.
I say start playing with Bing search.
Yeah. Yep.
And go through buying something. Say, hey, I want to buy, a new coffee machine. Then that'll give you a kind of glimpse on what's coming, because Bing searches for you. It uses GPT-4.
Yeah.
It searches for you, summarizes the info, and says, based on reviews, these are the top 3. So imagine that, but like for your store.
Absolutely. I even had it pop up in my Skype the other day. I was like, what? So again,
it's everywhere.
Yeah. And this is the thing. You think about Microsoft, you think about Google, you think about Meta. Yeah. All of them are connecting the dots on all their platforms, right? And if you're not seeing this, seriously, get on board, because obviously they're wanting to make sure that they understand the full kind of, let's say, consumer journey across their sites, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to integrate that data into giving better value and better insights. But if you're not, I talk about, I'm literally trying to convince clients the importance of having GA4 down. If you're not giving the platforms the right data, you're going to be left behind, and you need to make sure you are across these things and you've got the right things down, because there will be competitors out there that will be overtaking you like no tomorrow. So yeah, sorry to scare everyone this morning or this evening, but
it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's exciting. And, obviously, guys, I'm going to put a link to Alex's group. So it's all about this in more detail, AI and basically how it's going to be applied in the marketing space. Launched today, and there's already, I think, over 50-something people in it. And obviously, this is being streamed in there as well. But, guys, everyone, get on board. And honestly, if you've got any questions as well, ask away. I think we've definitely got a very, very intelligent and experienced person here, but there's also a lot of people in the market that are basically applying this. So yeah, but Alex, thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and obviously it's nice to feel like I'm not the only person on planet, cardio. And I'm trying to relate to people. You should have seen me going down. I went to talk to my parents the other night about a concept I'm working on. I went, and their face was just like, okay, well, we believe in you.
Yeah, it's like, that's nice.
Yeah. And
good for you.
You've got to expect to be the odd one out if you're trying to apply a new way of thinking and a new way of living in this world, So if you are thinking this way, don't worry, you're not alone. But yeah, so Alex, thank you again. And honestly, it's really exciting, and I can't wait to keep geeking out with you online even further.
Likewise. If anyone has questions, then drop them in either of the groups. And
absolutely. We're probably blowing a lot of people's minds, Alex,
Probably. I mean, go sit down, pour yourself a tea, coffee, or something stronger.
Yeah.
Digest it, rewatch it, and come back with any questions you have.
Absolutely.
I'm more than happy to answer.
But, be careful, because in a few days' time, this might have all changed. So.
Well, that's it. And it's like, what did he know?
Exactly, you know, all these, yeah, they're just scaring us. Anyway, thank you so much, and yeah, have a great evening. I know I kept you up probably quite late, but I'm
Oh,
sure you'll be working on lots of little prompts
I'm not
and
sleeping, James.
applications. Yeah, no
Exactly.
time for sleep in this world.
No, of course not.
Um, Amazing, thanks, Alex, and everyone
Awesome,
for
guys.
jumping on. Really appreciate your time, and as I said, any questions we can do our best to facilitate that, and you can pick out marketing brains. His is more coding than mine, but in terms of how this is really going to, and if you've got a question about your
Powerhouse.
business, yeah, and how that could be applied, shoot away. Have a wonderful
Awesome.
evening or day, morning, and yeah, until next time.
Catch you later.
All right. That was great. Thank you, everyone.